A very good morning, Navneet. On behalf of HDFC Securities, I take pleasure and privilege to host you for this Manifest 2023 before Diwali. I think you don't need an introduction, but however, it is right on my side on behalf of the investors. Everybody should know who you are. With me, we have the most esteemed guest, Mr. Navneet Munot, Managing Director and CEO of HDFC Mutual Fund. Sir, very good morning and wishing you a very, very happy Diwali on behalf of the HSL and all the investors over there.
Good morning, Sampath, and it's great to be with you this morning and wish each and every one of you a very happy Diwali and a healthy, happy, joyful, prosperous, blissful new year ahead.
Yeah, I think you missed one word, wealthy as well.
Prosperous.
yes. So that is what our investors has been.
Absolutely, yeah. Each and every client of HDFC Securities, I wish you all a very, very good new year.
Thank you so much for that, Navneet. I think more than what the questions I have written, I know these are not the questions you are not going to answer for. And you are an impromptu person. We have done this many a times. But first, the most important question which the retail investors have been having and what we have been seeing also, Navneet. I think the retail investors over a period of 10 years have become much more disciplined in their investments.
Absolutely.
The SIP is a testimony to the fact that this what statement I made, they have become more disciplined, they are sure shot about the India story. I think the India story is more spoken about, but I would like to specifically hear from you, what is differentiating us from the rest of the world?
Yeah. That's a very interesting question to start with, and generally looking at the world today, whenever people ask me about the world, the environment we are in, I normally answer in one sentence. Looking at the world we are in, the only thing I can say with certainty is continuity of uncertainty.
Okay.
The world is so, uncertain. I know this is a cliche, VUCA world, the volatile, uncertain, complex, ambiguous. People have come with many other acronyms, BANI, and I heard a couple of the other acronyms that people have come up with to describe the world we are in. But if you look at the geopolitical environment today, in last couple of years, the way it has kind of become concerning. You look at the macro environment globally, we have never seen inflation and interest rates at these levels for a very, very long time. If you look at the overall, the climate change related challenges, the deglobalization that's been happening in the world. So variety of challenges. I mean, not only as an Indian, but as a global citizen, as a citizen of the earth, I feel very proud and very happy that India led G20 and giving a strong message of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam at this stage that the world really needs. So over the next several years, since you talked about the India's role in the Amrit Kal, over the next several years, India will lead the world to show a model that how growth can be more democratic, how it can be more sustainable, how it can be more equitable, how it can be more inclusive. And we will not only be one of the biggest growth driver for the world, we will not only be the biggest supplier of talent as well as a new consumer of the world, given the demographic challenge in many other parts of the world, while we have a young population, an aspiring population, and within that, the rising role of women in our society. Some of these are like very, very positive. And you contrast the last year, what has happened in the world and what has happened in India. We led G20, we reached to the corner of the moon where nobody has reached. We have become the 5th largest economy. We have become one of the largest markets in the world. We got inducted into JP Morgan Bond Index. I think you look at the physical infrastructure development, you look at what's happening on the digital front in India, particularly on the digitalization of finance and many other things. And last but not the least, looking at the banking crisis and some of the other parts of the world, HDFC Bank became the 7th largest bank in the world in terms of market cap this year after the merger. I think as an Indian, you feel so proud about all of these. Not to talk about miss the 100 plus medals in Asian Games.
Definitely.
And look at what we are doing on the World Cup so far.
I think you articulated it very well. I think everyone who's going to hear this, they would be definitely feeling proud about we being Indian on the various spaces. I think you have been fair and all these spaces. Whether it is in the astronaut space, whether it is in the space, whether it is in the defense, whether it is in the sports. I think infra, digitization. I think you covered all that. But are you? Shall I take that as a hint that these are going to be the driving force as well for the economy as well?
No, all of them. So previously we talked about the geopolitical concern, the whole talk around the deglobalization, where the world is moving from a hyper-optimized supply chain to a more reliable supply chain. And I think India is clearly emerging as one of the places where most of the organizations in the world will look to expand their business. In fact, if you look at last quarter results of most of the large companies in the world, what everybody wanted to hear from those CEOs was the two words. One, what are you doing on the AI? Second, what are you doing in India?
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and of course, third, last but not the least, is sustainability. Those were like two or three the most important things that people wanted to hear from the leaders of every company in the world, every organization in the world. So I'm sure India will, over the next several years, will be one of the big driver of global growth.
So I'm going to say confidently to the investors, India is a story you need to hold on and not don't chase the returns and NAVs. I think India is a story that they should be aspiring to chase for this Diwali. That's what is coming loud and clear. But having said that, Navneet, see, we also need to be cautious. Do you feel that, equity comes with the word cautious? We all come with that statement, followed a big statement, which the regulator is keen upon saying that. So, do you think, is there something that we should also be cautious about? Do you feel that some kind of concern, is there any kind of concern at all? Would you like to step in there and throw some light?
So at any point in time, there would be concerns, right? I mean, when you look at the world or when you look at the India, over a long period of time, equities deliver higher returns. Why is that? Because equity as an asset class is volatile. The returns don't come in a linear fashion. That's why a lot of people miss on that asset class, because they are not able to stomach that volatility. Markets move like a pendulum. At various points in time, greed will drive markets to one extreme, then the fear in masses or in investors will drive market to the other extreme. But as you rightly mentioned at the beginning of our conversation, that investors now are becoming more disciplined.
Yes.
They are becoming more methodical in their approach when they look at equities, and increasingly more and more investors are following the approach of SIP, systematically investing every month, not getting swayed by the volatility, but taking advantage of the volatility. And global news flow will remain, I would say, lack of better word, erratic. Global news flow will give you a lot of concerns given the global environment we are in. We are in unprecedented environment when it comes to geopolitics. You look at various parts of the world. We are to some extent in unprecedented, at least in last couple of decades if I compare, on the macro environment as well. Global debt to GDP has gone up. India is one of those very few countries where the debt levels today as percentage of GDP have not really gone up since 2008 global financial crisis. In many other parts of the world or large part of the developed world, it has gone up substantially. And there are various kinds of challenges how to drive growth given the high debt levels, given the challenges on the demographics, that you don't have the young population, you are not adding younger workers, given the challenges on the whole climate change aspect. So they are dealing with a lot of structural, the challenges on the growth front versus India, where we are starting from a very low base, and over a period of time as penetration increases. And digitalization is helping us to leapfrog on many things. I mean, take the case of your business, capital markets, or our profession, mutual funds. The way we are growing in last few years, we are just kind of like seeing a substantially higher growth than what we have seen, and technology has played a good role in that.
Definitely. 15 Diwalis back, we used to fill the post-dated checks, and today we are just a call away. That clearly shows.
HDFC Sky or Invest Now. I mean, it's just like few clicks.
And it's there. HDFC Sky is just 3 minutes, less than 3 minutes. You open a trading account. All these are testimony to the fact that digitization is one of the and how it has helped our industry. Mutual fund, especially, to go to the leaps and bounds, as you rightly said. So yes, we need to be cautious with the geopolitical. That is something which I get it. So there are the most frequently asked question. So there is one particular investor. He has been behind me to ask you this particular question. He's our one of our frequent trader, Mr. Vikas Bansal. He says that Sampath, you have been saying large cap, large cap. Enough of that story now. The market has shown a different trend on mid cap and small cap. So I fall flat. I know that large caps on the longer run is definitely, we have seen that, Navneet, in the last decade, how large cap has over a period of 7 to 8 years and 10 years has given a substantial return. But this mid cap and small cap, which is currently, because I have investor, I have trader, so they would definitely want to know what is happening in this space, especially the kind of SIP inflow you get. Where do you think this will lead as well? Is it overheated? Is it right? Or is it yet to be tip of the iceberg? What exactly your views
So
on
the
that?
mid and small cap universe is very, very large, right? Large cap is top 100 companies. Everything else is mid cap and small caps, right?
Yes.
I mean, as per the SEBI classification, the next 150 stocks are mid caps and everything else is small cap. So you cannot generalize like, the mid and small caps are like that, because there would always be certain stocks which would be good for the long run. But there are, as I said, there are cycles. I think in last few months we have seen a substantial rally in mid and small caps relative to large caps. If you look at the Nifty today versus where the Nifty was exactly 2 years back in November of 2021, the move is relatively smaller relative to what it has happened on the mid and small cap, which clearly shows that large caps on a relative basis are offering a better value than the mid and small caps. But I would hedge that statement by saying one thing. If you are a long-term investor, if you are investing for 10 or 20 years, then historically mid caps and small caps have given better returns than the large caps. But in the very near term, you should not drive your car with a rear view mirror, right? Because last 6 months mid and small caps have substantially outperformed. Whether they will outperform in next 6 or 12 months, I really don't know. I mean, you could ask me that maybe 3 months back, and one would have said that no, they have run up quite a bit.
Yes.
But then again, they have run up even more. But I think you need to be cognizant of one fact, that on a relative basis today, the top 100 companies versus the next couple of 100 stocks at an index level are clearly showing a valuation comfort.
Okay, fair point. I think what I can summarize for the investors is the story is intact, provided you have a longer horizon. If I can sum it up that way.
India, I always say this, India is a stock picker's paradise. You have hundreds of companies to choose from to create a good portfolio.
So the next question would be, Navneet, will FIIs, we have been moving, FIIs used to be the first question, maybe 5-6 years back. I would have asked you, what is the view of
even
FIIs?
like 3 years back, Sampath, I remember in most of our conversation, and we have done many over the years, a lot of things will center around what FPIs will do, but it's dramatically changed in last 2 or 3 years, and thanks to everybody's effort, including people like you and our regulators and everybody else, that now the faith of domestic investors giving us money every month in the form of SIP has brought in a lot of stability, and our vulnerability to global flows, our vulnerability to the actions of foreign portfolio investors on our market has come down significantly. I'll just give one interesting data point. Between April 2021 and March 2023, foreign portfolio investors sold around 1,70,000 crores worth of Indian equities.
Wow.
And in this period, thanks to your support, mutual funds bought more than 3 lakh crores of Indian equities. Now imagine if we didn't have this money, what it would have done to our markets. And this is the reason that our markets have become less volatile than what historically they used to be. And I always to say that we dance to the tune of global liquidity, global risk environment, but now it has changed, and it's thanks to our domestic investors.
Absolutely. I think 3 lakh crore is a
in those
staggering.
3.5, I think, if I remember correctly.
Okay.
And but this is just I would say a tipping point that we have reached. While 16,000 crores look very large, but if you look at, there are only 4 crore unique investors. And I know in morning you were telling us that how in HDFC Securities alone you're thinking of like doubling or tripling your numbers over the next several years in terms of the number of
we
new
have
SIPs.
been getting that investors' confidence today. Every investor wants to start their account. with SIP, and we have been treating them health and wealth as combined. It's a
Absolutely.
disciplined way of getting your investment. I think investors have learned that. Credit to
Absolutely.
you people for creating value for them, and they have found out. Before getting into scheme specific detail, Navneet, one more question I would like to hear from you is, we are on the peak of highest GST collection, and we have got the best results, as you already mentioned.
Yeah.
You think any few more legs to be added that can help the equity market? Needless to say that elections round the corner, the most awaited question, people would want to hear it from you. All these, could you just make quicker points on the elections and those, apart from the GST points, what are the other significant factors which can drive this market?
So while we always talk about the long term, but whenever people ask me about the market views, बाजार क्या लगता है?
हाँ.
So my framework is like this. चार चीजें देखते हैं हम लोग. Number one is what is the macro environment.
Okay.
Number two, what is the direction of corporate profitability.
Okay.
Number three is where the valuations are. Number four is the liquidity or sentiments. Right? These four things, and that's my framework. If I look at the overall macro environment, I get worried about the global macro environment, but in contrast, India is looking pretty decent. You talked about some of the factors, like whether we look at the GST flows, whether we look at some of the other high frequency indicators. I think on the investment side, the government capex has been doing very well. Household capex on real estate is doing well. The corporate capex, where everybody's expectations have been high, at some point in time, logically that should kick in. On the consumption side, there is bit of, I would say, scope for growth on the rural consumption or the low-end consumption. Hopefully in next few months, let's see how the festive season and the wedding season in India, which is very critical for that, goes. But that's something market would be keeping an eye on. So the macro front, looking at the overall environment, it's for India it looks reasonably good,
Okay.
but you get worried about what the global environment is.
Understood.
On the corporate profitability, you talked about the last quarter's results. I think corporate sector has become leaner, has become fitter in last couple of years. The balance sheets are in a good shape, and over a period of time, as growth kicks in and the capacity utilization increases, we would see more capex. And with the long-term growth story in India, one would expect the corporate profit growth to remain in line or maybe slightly higher than the nominal GDP growth, because as a corporate profit as percentage of GDP bottomed around 2.5 years back, and they've just started inching up. We still have some more left to go. The third aspect is valuations, where I would say that valuations are very cheap. I think for the large caps, they would be more or less in line with the long run average. In the mid and small caps, they are running higher than the long run average. The fourth related important point is the overall liquidity and sentiment. There it's difficult to predict the FPI behavior, but the domestic investors, now that we have large part of our flows coming through the SIPs, that give you a lot of comfort. And there you have to see one, this the demand for equities because of the SIP flows. Then we have to see the supply of equities, the new issuance through the IPOs or the OFS, etc. and all. And I look at all of these, I feel comfortable from a long-term perspective. In the medium term, I think market consolidates at these levels, and over a period of time, if you are a good stock picker, there would be many interesting opportunities.
So next interesting thing is, even though we don't recommend anything, one thing our people and investors do is buy gold on Dhanteras. Right? That is one thing, doesn't need any view, because it has a emotional quotient and sentimental quotient in our investment. Being Dhanteras, I would definitely know. I know it's out of the context or out of the book question for you. Do you think silver is also catching up? Or
no, yeah. So silver has industrial usage. Gold mostly gets used in the on the jewelry side, and also from the investment side. Some of the institutions, individuals, central banks also buy gold as a diversification tool in their portfolio. But silver has a lot of industrial uses, right? I think the more and more we expand on solar energy, the more and more we expand on aviation, many other industries where silver has an industrial use. So as world grows and India grows within that, there would be more demand, and of course Indians buy a lot of silver jewelry as well. All I would say is buy gold and silver, but buy in the form of HDFC
ETF, yes. Silver also, there are a couple of
Indian, and we
Indians.
also have the fund of funds, so you can buy in any of the.
I'm sure they're making note of that. Navneet, I hope we will push them the paper gold, the digital gold, and the digital ETFs entering through gold and silver. Let's hope silver becomes the next gold. As you rightly said, the industrial usage is definitely showing more momentum in that.
And it's a good diversification. If you see the history of markets over the last several decades, there are years where equity delivers better, there are years where fixed income delivers better, there are years where metals like gold and silver deliver better, and if you have a more diversified portfolio, it just helps.
Definitely. So, Navneet, couple of last questions before we wrap up. Needless to say that HDFC top 200 and a couple of other schemes have definitely been looking at their NAVs has seriously created some huge wealth creation. But this Diwali, I think if I have to tell you, where will Navneet invest in two schemes of HDFC mutual fund? You'll have to take
all
the
my
two
money
schemes.
is in our
Mutual fund.
Mutual fund schemes. I think it will depend on
Two
each
schemes,
investor.
Navneet,
But I have to kind of just one or two names that I have to take. I think the top 100, because I think on a relative basis, as I mentioned earlier, the large cap valuations are looking reasonable, and that's a good fund to put in. Also, I would say the hybrid equity fund, because you get the allocation to both equity as well as to the fixed income side.
Okay. So
those who are looking for the allocation to both equity as well as
so these two schemes are definitely around the corner. I think I'll not take much more time. I know I have.
You asked me. I'll just mention, let's say if you have to choose only two equity schemes, because you asked me about the large, mid, small cap and all of that, and at various points in time people look at last few months returns and all. If you don't want to do that, why don't you put money, let's say, in something like a multi-cap fund, where you get exposure to minimum 25% to large cap, minimum 25 to mid cap, minimum 25 to small cap, and remaining as per fund manager discretion. So you get like diversified allocation to all the
so HDFC top 200 and multi-cap fund. Top 100 and multi-cap is definitely.
And last week only we celebrated 26 years of glorious history of that fund. Top 100.
Yes. It deserves more accolades. I think. Thank you, Navneet. I think more. I can't ask more than this, and I'm sure investors are going to definitely benefit with your views and the schemes and ETFs, gold ETF, and other various investment opportunities that you briefed about to our investors. I think I personally, if you look at, even I am an investor, I am investing only in HDFC mutual fund schemes. One thing is pretty sure, I am convinced while we are wrapping up this interview, India is a story that one should hold on, and on a long term, we are all going to become all those retail investors becoming. I'm assuming that they're going to become HNIs, and HNIs are going to become ultra HNIs.
And then it has happened, right? I mean, if you look at the history of our FlexiCap has been in existence for 28 years, or next year we'll be celebrating 30 years of our HDFC Balance Advantage Fund, so on and so forth. I talked about. You can see that even somebody who just did 1,000, 5,000, 10,000 rupees SIP, today you're talking about like crores of rupees. Yes. I mean, over a period of time. That's the power of compounding and the power of long-term investing. And since we started with the Amrit Kal, and if you have to play the Amrit Kal, if you have to play the India story, the best way to create wealth is, remember this formula, STP. The STP is sound investment, plus time, plus patience.
Wow.
These three things are most critical if you really want to make the most of the India story over the next 25 years.
Those are words of wisdom. I would definitely appreciate that, and my investors are also going to appreciate this. Navneet, thank you so much, and best wishes for in the future as well. And please continue this great work of creating wealth for our investors. Continue doing that. You have done already. You and your team has done a fantastic job on that. Once again,
our entire team is driven by this audacious mission to be the wealth creator for every Indian, and we sincerely thank HDFC Securities and each one of you for making this mission of our group.
Thank you so much. Thank you for the lovely words. Thank you so much.
Investment in securities market are subject to market risks. Read all the related documents carefully before investing.